Hi, my name is Eva Steiner, and this is my project Psychotherapists Around the Globe. I am interviewing the psychotherapists around the world and asking them the same 8 questions. I am wondering how mental health profession is in their country. Today we are going to. Thank you for doing this interview with me. Before we start, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
I'm Portuguese. I'm a psychotherapist. Now, today, I'm working in Lisbon, but I worked in other countries. I guess that's why you picked me up. I did my training in psychology. I finished in 95. So after that, I had other trainings in other schools in psychotherapy. So I'm a group analyst, and I'm now learning or training to be a psychoanalyst.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about your culture. What is some holiday or tradition that your country celebrates? And if your culture would be an emotion, what emotion would it be?
Can I start with emotion and then the culture?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So it's very interesting. We have a kind of music, singing. It's called fado. That music, that singing is, I think, what we call an emotion, a Portuguese emotion. Of course, lots of countries and lots of cultures say that they don't have the word of saudade. Saudade, it's missing of something, not missing of person, not missing, but missing of something like a basic thing. So Portuguese like to think that saudade, it's a word that doesn't exist in another language. Okay, so we have this melancholic state of mind. We are not like Spanish, we're not like French, we're not like English. We have this melancholic because the past sometimes it's heavy, and saudade is something that we have in our heart.
So it's like missing something.
I think it's connected because in a long time ago, we split the world between us and the Spanish. So part of the world was for the Spanish and part of the world was for Portuguese. So, and the travelings and the waiting for the people who went to the sea, the women waiting for them. So I think it's kind of emotion that it's always present.
And how is connected to the song Fagu?
Because saudade and the fado are a theme. So fado always talks about the woman who is waiting for the man, or the man who is not loved by the woman. Of course, there are different fados from different regions on Portugal. For instance, we have a fado in Coimbra, in the middle of the country, and that is connected to the specific life in that city. That city is the city of, it's one of the oldest universities in the world. So, of course, Fado is talk about the saudade of the small village that the students are from and how was the life as students and things about that. But it's different. It's a different kind of music. For instance, in that case, in that, the Fado from Coimbra, people don't clap. Don't say, don't do this. They just put your things in, because if you clap, it's like an offense. It's different. And for instance, the father from Lisbon, it's much more joy and much more. So it's really different. And
Good.
the cultural, we are almost in the end of March. I think one of the events that really shaped our country was the revolution of 25 of April of 1974. So before, Portugal was a dictatorship.
Dictatorship.
Dictatorship. And after that date, we become a democracy. So this particular year, we are going to celebrate 50 years of that revolution. This is a very important date. So everything changed in Portugal. And the revolutions, we are really proud of that revolution because everybody came to the street. We are not expecting that revolution. And it was so well received, the idea that there was a woman selling red carnations. And the militaries started to put in the guns a red carnation. So there are photos with the guns and red carnations because it was like the antithesis of a revolution. red carnations in the gardens, it was really fantastic. So we call our revolution the Red Carnation Revolution. It's amazing the people standing and waiting for the dictator to went out of Lisbon. They're just waiting. There was tension in air, but everything was almost controlled. So it was one of the biggest moments and biggest happy days in our country. Yes.
How did you become a psychotherapist in your country, and what is your therapeutic approach?
I started to do my own analysis. I was in the middle of my training as a psychologist, and I started to do group analysis as a patient. And then after I finished my training, lots of people don't do that. Lots of people starting to do the training at the same time they are doing their own analysis. I didn't. I finished my analysis in group analysis, and I started to do the training as a group analyst. So this is my first training. And my approach, well, group analysis comes from a basic common ground from psychoanalysis, but it was a theory more explored by someone from UK, from Fuchs.
Mm-hmm.
He started to research that after the Second World War, when people came from the combat fields and they didn't have enough staff to treat people with PTSD. So decided to do it in groups. There are three main guys, Fuchs, Bian, and other guy that I'm so sorry I don't remember. That's why the group analysis started. And of course, they tried to understand after the Second World War how it worked, how people can work and improve their well-being inside of a group. That's why I became a group analyst. There was a point in my practice that I decided to want to learn more, so I decided to take another training. I think everybody feel that way, and I think this is the third year that I'm doing the training in psychoanalysis. So it's an ongoing process.
And in general, how do you become a psychotherapist in Portugal? Do you need to have a psychology and then psychotherapy training, or you can go directly to psychotherapy training, or there is any other way?
Everybody's discussing this in Portugal because psychotherapy here in Portugal until now was not really regulated. Of course, the psychologist order in Portugal say that if you are a psychologist, you can be a psychotherapist, but the scientific societies don't have the same opinion because you have to do an interview to go to a scientific society. And if you are like a nurse, or if you are a sociologist, or if you are a social worker, if you do the training in the scientific society, you can become a psychotherapist. And that is also my view. You don't necessarily to be a psychologist, but you have to have a training in psychotherapy.
How society looks upon psychotherapy or any psychological help?
I think we are seeing changes, aren't we? All over the world. One of the reasons I think it was the pandemic. It put mental health on the table. You have to discuss it. And it was very good. I think 1 year ago I went to Prague to a congress and people are discussing now. I think I understand why I'm sometimes depressed because my family. This kind of conversations would never happen. And it was not a congress only for psychologists or psychotherapists. So this kind of conversation would never happen. Or people saying, oh, I don't know what happened. Some years ago, one of my friends was depressed and I didn't notice. Now we are starting to talk more about that. And of course, the demand for psychologists, it's really huge in these present times. And people are starting to understand how important is mental health. And it's very good.
And before the pandemic, what did you notice? How was the relationship towards mental health, mental disorders?
It was like a weakness. It was like something that you were afraid of talking. It was something that you would not show. You see, it was really something shameful.
Mm.
Now, fortunately, it's different. It's it's starting to be different. It's not completely different, but it's starting to be different, I think. I worked in a university, so I still work with some students. I think they are really the change. They are talking more about what they feel. They are talking more about what the desires. I think the change is really in youth. So they are really changing the way they are looking for help. They are asking for social services on the university to have therapy, and they are really changing the way of we understand the world. Of course, that's age that everything is possible, everything is the future. So I think they are changing also the way that all the people are seeing things.
What is your society teaching about child-parent relationship, and whether these values of society also influence how you design your interventions?
We are a Latin country, so parents are very important. And as I told you, I have very young clients from the starting of being an adults, and they are still really connected to the parents. And sometimes you have to do very interesting work, art too, to make a separation, individuation from the parents. So they are like strings, invisible strings that the parents push the kids, not the kids or not the teenagers, but the young adults. And of course, these kinds of strings also are pulled by the young people. So sometimes it's difficult to separate, to make them understand they don't have to do what the parents want. And of course, this is the way I feel that I have to design my intervention, to make them self-free to do what the parent expectations have for the young adults. So that's the way I do my intervention. Of course, thinking about everything what happened during the childhood and the teenagehood.
Mm-hmm. And if the adult client would come to you and say, I don't want to contact with my parents anymore, how would you approach?
I have clients who did that. It's very painful for them, but sometimes it's important to do that. There's a word everybody is talking about, toxic, because sometimes the relationships are toxic. And toxic relationships, it's a big bag that you can put everything on it, isn't it? But if a person decides to not talk with a parent, well, I think it's the last chance. It's the last thing that they feel that they can make them feel free. So, of course, I'm not trying to make them to talk with the parents. I'm just asking why he made that decision, and try to understand and try to believe if that's what really he wants, and if that's really what he wants.
What are the learned beliefs regarding client-therapist relationship, and can the relationship continue outside the therapy once the therapy process is over?
No, of course not. Of course not. No, we don't have any kind of doubts about that. I don't have any kinds of doubts about that. I'm training in a society, a psychoanalytic society, that it's not very rigid. Of course, I don't do things like I don't talk. If someone calls me, if a client calls me, I'm not going to talk with that client until the next session or things like that. No, I don't think it's human. Of course, I answer the phone call or I answer the text message because it's like a cry for help or ask for help. But about the boundaries, I'm very restricted. For instance, in my groups, people cannot see themselves, cannot see outside of the group. They don't have the phone numbers, they don't have emails, if the group begins inside of the room and finished inside of the room. It's really important, that kind of things. I believe in those rules. But have contact after the psychotherapy is over, I never did that.
These group rules are super interesting. I never heard about it, that the group is not allowed to interact outside, but then everything is happening there. So it's really intense, huh?
Yes, it's really intense. And if the members see themselves in the middle of the the street, they say hi, but they don't have to talk. They don't talk. They talk inside of the room. Because if you are going to have a coffee with other member and you're not feel or starting to have a privileged relationship with a member, then you're not feel free to talk what do you think about something that the other member did or the other member said. It's like it's important that people say what they feel, not have like a kind of loyalty.
And what do you do if the members break this rule?
Well, I always ask, you have to talk about that in the session. And then we see, for instance, I had a group where two members starting a relationship, a romantic relationship. One of them had to go because it was impossible. And if they see one of the members, if one member see one of the members, and then they are free to talk about that. And it's important to talk about that and what they felt when that happened. I think it's a kind of transparency.
Okay, the sixth question: is supervision a must for a therapist in your country?
Oh, yes. Yes. From the beginning until the end. I think it's a moral must. You have to have someone to think about your clients. You don't have to be arrogant to believe that you know everything. In Portugal, we have a phrase, two heads think better than one. So you have to understand that you need to always thinking about your practice and not only supervision. I think sometimes we need to go again on analysis. There are some events in your personal life that can impact your private practice. And it's very important that you can ask for help at that time. Because you have sometimes, like we say, some blind spots, and that can appear in the relationship that you have with your clients or the interpretations that you have in your clients. And it's important, not only supervision, but also if you feel that you need, you have to go again on analysis.
And if I understood you correctly, there is no law for psychotherapy in Portugal, but there is law for psychology?
Yes. In my society, the one that I'm doing now, the training that I'm doing now, I have colleagues, they are nurses, they are social workers, they are doctors, and they are studying as me. I really feel that being a psychotherapist, it's not only for psychologists.
And how do you get psychotherapy help? It's through private practice or it's through public sectors?
Well, we have both. Few resources in public health, and well, it's very expensive, as you know, in the private way. But somehow, also because of pandemia, we now have lots of kinds of resources in private practice. So, for instance, I'm working in an online platform for people Portuguese who were abroad, people from academia or studying, and now I'm doing through that online platform. It's called Rumo Solutions. So I started to see people, and I'm doing in English sessions with a German guy who also know Portuguese because did stayed some time in Brazil. So it's like, well, the possibility to do it by online, by video conference, it's really something. Of course, there are lots of things that lots of people that don't like so much about video conference, but it's a specific kind of psychotherapy. And it's very interesting. And the power that you have in your hand to help, in the sense, not an arrogant power, but yes, you can go to more people, you can help more people in this way.
What are the most common complaints that the client comes to therapy for?
It depends the kind of population that you are seeing. So I see young people, adolescents, people from universities, and people that really are struggling to talk and to express the emotions. I see lots of women trying to understand what they want from the romantic relationship they have.
Do you specialize in everything?
In the public sector, I work in the substance misuse field, addictions. I try not to bring people with addictions to my private practice. And then, because I work in university, I have university students. The people in my private office send some cases to me. I work whatever it comes. I don't work with children. That's something that I.
So the last question, if you would share one tool, belief, or approach that is a must-have for you as a therapist, what would that be?
I think it's important to do a good analysis, your analysis. It's important to do a good training, and it's important to have for a long time supervision.
Yeah.
It's important that you know yourself very well, know where is your blind spots, to be aware of that. It's important that you have a good training in the sense of good scientific society. Also, it's important at the same time supervision. You remind me a book from Yalon. You know Yalon?
Yes.
And it's very interesting because he talks about his practice, and he somehow also describe the way that he was analyzed, and then the way that he felt that he was never really understood in their analysis with his analysts. And he said something very interesting. The only time that I don't know if this is the right words, sorry. The time that I felt that I was helped was when they were not doing something in the rules. You know, because sometimes we are so craving to be right that we are not authentic. And then he also in the same book was mentioned a scene when he was with a patient. Of course, he's old and sometimes he's tired. And the patients, the clients were really careful to not put him more tired, and he appreciated that. And one of the clients said to him, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know if you are tired after our session." And he said something, "No, I'm not tired. A good session make us feel alive." And then he closed the door after the client went away, and then he opened the door and said, "Oh, you were right, I'm tired."